Hi, my name is Jacob Gray, and I am doing an author discussion for Alain Locke. Some background information on Alain Locke. Alain Locke was born on September 13th, 1885. His place of birth was Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. His father was Pliny, and his mother's name was Mary. His education background is he was a very gifted student. He graduated from Central High School second in his class in 1902, and he also attended the Philadelphia School of Pedagogy before eventually attending Harvard. He then graduated from Harvard with 2 degrees, one in literature and one in philosophy, and he graduated from Harvard in 1907. Some important facts about Alain Locke is he was the first African American to win the Rhodes Scholarship, which was a very prestigious award. He taught English at Harvard University and was the chair of the school's Department of Philosophy up until 1 year before he died. Most of Locke's writing focused on African American identity, and he declared his belief in Baha'i faith in 1918. And Alain Locke died on June 9th, 1954 in New York City. And I can't get my video to play for the New Negro summary, so I'm just going to restate what I said in the video. The New Negro was a new generation of African Americans that wanted to change racial inequality in the 1920s. Many were well educated and wealthy. The New Negro was popularized by Alain Locke. What I gathered from my research is a New Negro is someone who stands up for himself and does not accept racial inequalities in the world. Someone who is brave and challenges systematic norms. Also someone who takes pride in their own culture. The New Negro is not your typical book. It has pictures and poems included in it, not just text. This book helped shape the manner in which African Americans viewed themselves. On page 6 of the New Negro, Locke explains his primary goal in the New Negro is to migrate from the notions of an old Negro, as well as from the exhaustive frameworks of intellectual black leadership towards an idea that gives creative agency and credibility to the rank and file of Negro life. His motive here was to establish an idea of a new Negro as a means of rediscovering individuality, a voice in the context of community. The New Negro was very impactful and changed the mindset of millions for the better. I also couldn't find a way to get my video from YouTube that explains the influence on society that Alain Locke had. So I'm going to play the audio from it on YouTube.
Well, I think probably the most important one is he authored the original The New Negro, which was an anthology of writings of these various artists of the 1920s. That was a tremendously popular book, and it was perhaps the first really thoroughly intergenre, interdisciplinary work. It had paintings that were reproduced in color by Venal Rice. It had poetry, short stories, critical essays, at a time when the black issue was generally thought of in problematic terms. It was a social problem. And he says, no, this is an aesthetic resource that we ought to pay attention to. So in that sense, he changed the conversation about what it meant to be black in the United States from one of being a ward or problem to actually an asset. So I think that was probably his signature contribution. He then went on to try to build the infrastructures to support these artists as they try to realize many of the things that he promised that they would deliver. Some of them weren't able to do that, and partly because art wasn't supported in the way in which it is now. There was no national endowment of the arts. So he went to private patrons to try and get funding so that artists would have the free time to actually create their work. And he was somewhat successful in that. But again, the conflicts that developed between him and the patrons and the artists, sometimes he was not able to to manage particularly well. He was a person who was a power-hungry person in many ways. And so sometimes that need to control actually destroyed the relationships and kept them from realizing the things that he wanted to do. But the thing that's really captivating about him is that he refused to stop even when things went badly, even when the personal patronage structures disintegrated. He went on and created what I think was a real innovation, more corporate and institutional patronage. So he worked with the Carnegie Corporation. He worked with the American Association of Adult Education. He worked with the Progressive Education Association to get funding to pay artists and to pay scholars to produce work in this area, which I would call early Black studies. He's really a forerunner of the Black studies movement as something where art, literature, sociology, political science, philosophy, all can be in conversation about the challenges to American democracy that racism and race-based subjects provide.
And that is the end of my presentation. Here, as you can see, are the works cited. This is where I got all of my information on Alain Locke. And thank you for watching my presentation.